Oh, yeah, I'm live. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. This is the Aftershow. Every night, every Friday night, about 7 p.m., we do an Aftershow, and it's played live on cjmarsradio.com, and then you can find it later on YouTube and Spreaker Report. We have with us tonight Mike Bluehair, who is the head of a group called Portland Film the Police. And he was just down there at the Ferguson and stuff like that. He just did something, too. There's something going on where I don't know if Mike did this, but I think he sent a drone over FBI headquarters to film them. Hey, Mike, you there?
Sure. Yeah, man, I'm here. And just so you know, it's Film the Police Portland. But yeah, in commemoration of the death of our Civil Liberties Day, because that's what I call 9/11, me and three quote-unquote co-conspirators decided to fly a drone over the FBI building here in Portland out by the airport. That was kind of an interesting experience.
Wait a second. You rented a drone and flew it over FBI?
Oh, no. You can buy one. If you have an extra $700, you can buy a really, really great one that goes up, 250 feet in the air. Our drone can get from the ground to about 60 feet in 4.5-5 seconds.
Hey, that is really cool, man. You got a pretty big operation going on over there, huh?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a big operation. I would call it a very focused, dedicated operation by a few, driven volunteers and myself that we put everything into it. So we do cop watching in a very systematic and thorough way. So allow me to tell your audience or your listenership what we do at Film the Police Portland so they know who they're talking to.
Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, about a year ago, my friend Carrie Medina was at a bus bench, and she was waiting for her max transfer, and she noticed that the police had a black teenage boy on his face about 300 yards away from her. Well, Carrie's really tech savvy, so she pulls out her cell phone, and starts live streaming. So she's beaming a live broadcast to the internet. And it turns out that the kid ended up being later on a litter suspect. But Carrie started filming. She walked in about 100 yards closer, so she's about 200 yards away. And the police came to her and basically told her that they're going to snatch her phone for evidence, and twisted her arm and confiscated her phone. That ended up that case actually ended up getting on national news. And Carrie and I sat down and talked amongst ourselves, what can we do to prevent this kind of thing? And we came up with the idea of Film the Police Portland. So on the weekends, myself and a group of volunteers goes out to the bar crawl in Portland, Oregon, and we basically listen to the police scanner, and we film every police encounter we see on either Friday or Saturday night, and upload it to the web. And the idea is to promote accountability through scrutiny. We don't do it from a total anti-cop perspective or a total pro-cop perspective. We're kind of somewhere in the middle, although I do have a reputation for what's the word? Well, I can't use expletives, so it's kind of hard. Well, kind of cussing cops out when they do things that I see that are patently illegal or violating of someone's rights. So that's basically what Film the Police Portland is.
Gotcha. Oh, but this is how many volunteers you got?
Some weekends I have 3. Some weekends I have as many as 8.
Okay. That's pretty significant. And how do you fund all this?
How do I fund it? Out of my own pocket, basically.
Man,
I funded myself to go down to Portland, and I took a leap of faith. I paid out of pocket to go down there and cover the riots and the civil unrest out of pocket, and I started a GoFundMe page. I'm like, I hope people help, but they actually did. So I was able to fund my trip down to Ferguson to cover that scary police state mess as an activist journalist, and that was an experience for me. Kind of like a bad trip or a bad movie.
Well, okay, now if people want to send you donations, how would they go about doing it?
Well, you could go to my YouTube channel, which is Mike Bluehair, and I have a Patreon page set up. It's right there on the homepage of the YouTube channel. But honestly, the best way people can support what I do is go watch my videos. Right now, I think I'm co-founder of the most active police accountability group in North America. What I mean by that is our group has filmed in the past year alone more police encounters than any place that I can find on the web. I mean, we have over 190 police encounters documented and uploaded to the web in the first year that we've been around. So in that first year time period, I'm pretty sure we're the most active as far as actually publishing what we see. There's a lot of groups that go out and observe the police and they don't upload every video they film, you know. So I have no idea the volume of impact they're having on their communities. But as far as stuff that's published, the YouTube channel Mike Bluehair probably has more police encounters than any YouTube channel or any other video hosting channel that I can find on the internet. So the best way to support is to watch my videos and share them with others.
So you are making some decent funds from the AdSense on the YouTube channel?
Well, YouTube doesn't really pay very much.
Yeah, right.
At all.
It's peanuts.
It breaks down. Do you monetize your stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, then it's about $1 per 1,000 views. So,
yeah.
You know, to make a yeah, but still, I mean, the best way to support what I do, I feel, is to share it, you know.
Gotcha. Okay, but you do need funds for cameras and stuff like that, and for gas and for these scanners and stuff. Come on.
Oh, of course,
yeah.
Of course.
So,
well, yeah, like I said, check out my Patreon feed. There's a Patreon campaign that I'm running.
Okay.
It's right there on there's a video that automatically plays when you go to the YouTube channel, Mike Bluehair, and it's under there. It says support our Patreon campaign. And if people would like to, they can just click on that and, you know, throw me some love. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and all those links are on the Opperman Report blog at the bottom, because at the top we had Bill Scott tonight, who's the father of Eric Scott, this guy murdered in Costco over here in 2010. But at the bottom, the second half of the post is Mike Bluehair and all his links to his Twitter and everything. You know, he has a dozen links on there. Okay, man. So, like, what is your biggest adventure? What have you ever had one was really touchy and touch and go?
Adventure kind of, something really kind of shocking, and I was taken aback, happened to me at Ferguson. I could explain that.
Yeah, let's hear that. Yeah.
Let me paint a picture for those of your audience members that were just watching it on the mainstream media. First of all, the mainstream media just completely painted the civil unrest in a very watered down, paled comparison of what it was really like there. I mean, I've covered quite a few protest and riot type situations, large summit protests, May Day celebrations, NATO summits, all kinds of stuff. But this was the most broadly scoped, widely sweeping, systematic denial of civil liberties that I've ever seen in my entire life. So first of all, they shut down mass transit in Ferguson. When I got there on the 19th, I showed up and I didn't know anybody, and I was trying to figure out where this protest area was, and it took me half a day to get there. I had to walk in. They shut down mass transit, so I had to walk in about 3/4 of a mile. And the area where people were allowed to protest in Ferguson was about a 10-block strip of highway. It's 2 lanes of highway that had a soft, permeable checkpoint at both ends, meaning there's quite a few vehicles and quite a few men standing around with rifles at both ends. And no one had the right to peaceably assemble to petition their government for redress of grievance. They were only allowed to walk. So the protesters could only walk, and they were only allowed to walk on the sidewalk along the perimeter of this double-lane highway, 10-block strip of urban center. Now, if any group of people would gather in a group, say, larger than 5 or 6 people, the police would form a line like a phalanx and a hard line and start marching through and clear that crowd as if though there were an unruly mob that were threatening some sort of a riotous action. It was crazy. And people were immediately threatened with arrest. And if people would complain about this, that, hey, you're violating my civil rights. I'm supposed to be able to stand here and talk, people would just get grabbed up at random, and they would be arrested, but they would say they were being arrested for failure to disperse. Well, that law failure to disperse in Missouri it's applicable to riotous situations. It's supposed to be applicable to an unlawful assembly. So they were grabbing these people up under false pretenses. And the thing is that all the people they were grabbing up, most of them they were releasing the next day without charges.
Right.
But it was a really insidious way to deny people their free speech. So it was just really, really creepy. And the level of attention that the police in Ferguson were paying to media, both alternative media and mainstream, was scary and Orwellian on a level that makes George Orwell's classic book 1984 pale in comparison. I mean, it was really frightening to hear them announce over that LRAD crowd control device, media go to the designated media area, and then you would hear, guys with rifles screaming, go to the designated media area. And what that was it was a parking lot from a used storage place that the mainstream media had they rented that space so that they could set up all their equipment, and it had a scale-proof metal fence around it. And anytime the police wanted to do something really aggressive, they would order the media into that specific little area where no one could really see anything, and then they would start doing their more aggressive crowd control techniques. But the thing that really scared me on the 19th, my first day when I was there, was there was a situation where there was a lot of chaos and people were throwing metal bottles or glass bottles and plastic bottles at the police, and there was multiple arrests going on at the same time. And one of the things police are not supposed to do when they're lining up in these riot lines to control crowds is break ranks. And what I mean by breaking ranks is if a cop in a crowd control situation walks out into the middle of a crowd by himself when he doesn't have his other fellow soldiers, basically, because they're acting like Roman infantry, protecting his flanks, he's exposed and weak. Well, this officer, his name's Ray Elbies, basically walked out into a crowd of mostly media people. There was like 12 of us, maybe, all with cameras, a few mainstream and a few activist journalists like myself. And he leveled a semi-automatic rifle, an AR-15, at center mass, leveled it on the horizontal plane, finger on trigger, and started pointing the rifle around at various people. At one point, he pointed the rifle at a black kid. He looked like he was maybe 16 or 17 years old. The kid had already had his hands up, because one of the things the protesters were doing a lot there was they would walk around and they would chant, "Hands up, don't shoot."
Right.
But the officer 10 feet in front of me literally said to this kid, "Get back or I will effing shoot you." And a couple of the times when he's scanning around with the rifle, literally at 10 foot away, the rifle was pointed at my chest 3 different times. And that frightened me a lot because I've had a colorful life, and I've had police point guns at me, before. Okay, cool. Well, right.
Let me give a background on me. I was one of the yippies back in the 70s, so I'm very familiar with.
Wow.
Oh yeah, now I'm very familiar with street protests, anarchist protests, all.
Right on.
Yeah, brother. Well, I'm here with you.
I'm an anarchist myself.
Hey, well,
yeah.
I was an anarchist. I'm a socialist now, but who knows?
Okay, right on.
Doesn't really matter what we are, man. They got guns pointed at us.
No, we're all beautiful snowflakes, and the point is that we're all part of the same human family, and our experiences are universal. And I usually focus on those universal experiences. But yeah, so since you've had cops point guns at you, the difference between this and that, I feel, is basically when cops are pointing guns at me and I knew that they weren't afraid, right? It doesn't really evoke a fear response in me. I guess I'm crazy. But this guy had a frightened look on his face, and I was thinking to myself, this guy is going to shoot someone. So that happened to me my very first day in Ferguson, Missouri, and that was just crazy. The level of militarization I saw there was something out of a B a bad B movie about, a post-apocalypse when society falls apart or something. I mean, these guys were in mine-resistant armored vehicles, sniper rifles on the roofs with bipods, picking targets through the crowd. And this is when there's not a crowd control situation happening. This is just when people are just walking around milling about. It was just crazy.
Couple of questions,
that's
man.
a recent, yeah, man.
Yeah. When the shooting happened with Mike Brown, how many days later did you show up in Ferguson?
Well, I showed up about 8 days to a week later.
Now, by that time, didn't the protesters have like leadership that had liaisons with the cops and peacekeepers and working out rules and stuff? None of that was going on?
That was going on. There was a lot of that. Did you go scan my 30 uploads that I uploaded from there, or did you just did you look at any of the videos I produced about Ferguson?
No, I apologize. I did not.
It's no big deal. It's no
Keith
big deal.
Davis
recommended
you. He's a big fan of yours and a big supporter, and he's one of my producers.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. Right on. Well, I got into this quite heavily. Yes. By that time, there were a few groups. There was a group called the Peacekeepers, and they were wearing black T-shirts with Peacekeeper on it. And then there was a group of ministers from all over the St. Louis area. Because Ferguson was what surprised me most about it, that what wasn't being portrayed in the mainstream media, was it was a working class, blue-collar suburb. Like, sure, Mike Brown was shot across the street from two large projects buildings, like ghetto-looking things. But surrounding that, in 10 or 12 blocks in either direction, are all single-family, blue-collar working homes. And all these groups of quote-unquote organizers were coming from other suburbs of St. Louis. So you had a group called Clergy United that came out there that were mostly ministers. And quite frankly, these people creeped me out, and I'll explain why. They were actively liaising with the police in a way that, in my humble opinion, was way too close to the police, all the way to the point to where I think that they contributed to this denial of people's civil rights and liberties. I watched these people hugging the cops and, slapping high fives with the cops. A friend of mine actually saw some of these Clergy United guys actually getting into a vehicle with the police. But the police would order the media to go to the designated media area over the LRAD, like I said, that ear-splitting sonic weapon that no matter what you do, you can fill your ears with wax and you're still going to hear that inside your head. They would announce media go to the designated media area. And then these clergy guys, these preachers, would start aping in unison, media go to the designated media area. Or if the police would tell people to disperse, these clergy guys would come by and tell people to disperse. It was really, really creepy watching these people work on the cops at the behest of the police. And there's something that I'm kind of interested in. I'm interested in brainwashing and how people are conditioned by things like media and fear or trauma-based mind control type stuff.
Sure.
And what I found shocking about this was, if you think about the psychological impact of having a preacher say the same things that these militarized goons in riot gear with semi-automatic rifles, with carrying around sniper rifles and all manner of other type weapons. It was crazy. I have to describe what the cops look like. This is very important. Okay, I want you to imagine if someone pulled up a flatbed truck that's just loaded with random military gear, gas masks, night vision, different types of long rifles, whatever. And then these redneck cops would just kind of go through and pick what they liked that they thought looked the coolest.
Really?
I mean, they would form a line. Yeah, they would form a line.
Wait a second. So cops were picking up weapons that they had never been trained on before or weren't familiar with?
That's what it looked like to me. Let me describe the line.
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually at a protest, there's uniformity in what all the cops are wearing. They're all wearing, if they all have gas masks, they all have gas masks. If they all have riot shields, they all have riot shields. This was a line of 75 cops the first cop you would look at would be holding a semi-automatic rifle, and he would be wearing no helmet, right? The second guy would be wearing a helmet, and he'd be holding a police baton in his hand. The third guy would have no helmet and a riot shield and a less lethal shotgun slung over his shoulder. The third guy would just have a stick in his hand. The fourth guy would be, and their clothes are different too. Some would wear body armor, some wouldn't. Some had shin guards on, some didn't. So it was all this mismatched hodgepodge. It looked like Mad Max to me because it was just random gear they were carrying. There's no uniformity at all.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, it was just weird. But the psychological impact of these preachers yelling the same stuff the cops were, I find chilling, because police are an authority figure in people's minds. They're the authorities. There's a certain psychological impact that if someone has a badge and a gun, there's a certain amount of charisma that they command, and people will just kind of acquiesce to it without thinking. If you combine that with religiosity or religious upbringing or Judeo-Christian mythos, which is hammered and permeated deeply into the social fabric of our nation, if you get these preachers yelling the same stuff as an LRAD crowd control weapon at the same time the police are trying to achieve X goal, it's a double layer of conditioning that's really hard for people to deal with.
Well, let me ask you this. Were these peacekeepers, were they getting along with the protest leaders? Were they sanctioned? Were people listening to them? Well, how was that working out? Were they considered the enemy?
It was a mixed bag. Like sometimes the protesters would listen to the peacekeepers and the people that seemed to be organizers, and sometimes they wouldn't. But
chaos, huh?
I was there I first arrived on the 19th, was the last day of uproar. It got really, really incrementally calmer as the days marched on. I left on the 22nd. But what I saw at the tail end of the bad stuff was just an incredible denial of civil liberties, especially in the form of not even allowing people to assemble. Now, the police had a rampant disregard and coupled with animosity towards pretty much anyone holding a camera. I mean, it was commonplace for me to see cops with strobe lights just blasting people in the face when they're trying to film. I saw a few times journalists trying to set up tripods and lighting equipment in parking lots, and try to interview people, and the police formed riot lines and marched through and cleared them. It was just crazy, the level of cognizance you saw these police show towards trying to control and dominate the media is something that I've never seen in my life. And I've been doing this activist journalist stuff since 2007, but I've been going to protest and stuff since 1999, something like that. So and it's not my first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. And this was just the only way to describe it is just Orwellian, nightmarish.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think it was just because this little 53-man police force there in this little city of Ferguson, this little tiny 20,000-member town, were just completely overwhelmed, and that then when they brought the county in, they did this hodgepodge, disorganized thing? Or do you think this was something more involved, like a big psyop kind of operation after things got going along?
I think my feelings are that it was quite a bit more disorganized. I've never really met a conspiracy theory that I don't like, just so you know.
Sure.
But this seemed like just an overwhelming amount of fear-based militarization and fear reactions on the part of this police force. I think that these preachers and these clergy people, I think that they legitimately believe that they were doing the right thing by trying to go along with what the police said.
Right.
I mean, because I talked to a lot of them. I interviewed a lot of them. They wouldn't speak on camera, but I got in lots of arguments with them. I even got in a few shoving matches with a few of these people.
With peacekeepers. You can't even get along with a peacekeeper, man?
Not when they're yelling out stuff over an LRAD and telling me that I can't film. Not when I spend $700 out of my own pocket to go and work for the people of Ferguson for free as an alternative journalist and put myself out on the line for them. No, I'm not a fan of someone telling me I can't film. So,
I hear you, man.
But I think that these preacher people trying to work with the police was their version, and I think they were earnestly trying to keep the peace. But the net result was a Orwellian destruction of civil liberties. So I don't really feel that it was a big psyop. No.
Okay, now what about in the crowd? Did you notice any provocateurs, undercover cops in the crowd causing trouble?
I didn't personally witness any of that myself, but I interviewed a woman. She's on my YouTube channel. I interviewed a woman who said that the very first day before the Quick Trip was burned down and a bunch of windows were smashed, that she noticed that she was across the street from the Quick Trip, and there were literally hundreds of cops just kind of standing there,
right?
Not trying to defend the Quick Trip at all. And the police just kind of stood across the street, hundreds of them in riot gear with, all this military equipment, tear gas, all this stuff. They stood across the Quick Trip for hours and just watched people slowly going in and out, taking things. In my humble opinion, from doing these kind of events as an experienced activist media type person, in my humble opinion, there's a standardization of a pattern that the police and media fall into when there's a situation like this. Like what they do is they allow civil unrest to get to a certain point. That way it justifies their militarization later. I like the W2O protest in Seattle years back. They allowed people to break windows and smash up stuff the first couple of days and run it on the media like the apocalypse is coming and the police have no choice but to tear gas your neighborhood for the next week. I really think that these patterns are adhered to on purpose so that they can justify their militarization. And this woman that I interviewed told me that they just kind of let those people do that without even trying to intervene. And she also explained to me that she saw on numerous occasions the crowd just kind of being calm, and then all of a sudden people would start throwing stuff and things would just go crazy. And she felt that there were agent provocateurs in the crowd. Yeah. So people that I interviewed did tell me that they saw this, but I myself did not notice any of that with my own eyes.
What about the new Black Panther Party when they came down? Were people receptive to them, or were they kind of shunned?
I talked to a few of those guys, and I'm a fan of the Black Panther Party, especially the older guys.
Sure.
Academically, when you can read about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. So, in my humble opinion, if you're black and you're not a black militant, you're either afraid or you're not paying attention. I mean, you're being systematically hunted by the system, and that's just, black men, especially between the age of like 18 and 25, are basically just seen by our system as a potential revenue generating engine for the prison industrial complex. Yeah. So I understand the animus for black militancy. So I'm a fan of a lot of these people's perspective, maybe not their methods, but I am definitely a fan of their perspective.
But you know that like guys like Bobby Seale, and Lorenzo Irvin don't endorse these new Black Panthers.
Right, they don't because
they're FBI informants.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, there's that.
Did you notice? Yeah. Well, there's that. Yeah. So what?
Yeah, there is that. But yeah. I was gonna touch on that a bit, but you beat me to it. That's fine. But yeah, so I tried to talk and interview some of them, and they were basically spouting a bunch of black nationalist kind of angry type stuff.
Right.
And their presence wasn't really shunned, and it wasn't really universally accepted either. There was a bunch of people there from the God, who are they? There's a socialist group from St. Louis there, not socialist, but a communist group.
Okay.
And they had a lot of radical people out there, and a lot of people were more receptive to them. The new Communist Party or whatever.
Right.
Those guys had a lot of people that seemed to be supportive of what they had to say. They brought a banner with faces, and it had like over 100 faces on it. And each 8x10 face was someone that was killed by cops under shady circumstances. But yeah, and when these people would actually start to speak, like these peacekeepers would come by again, and the Clergy United folks. The Clergy United folks would tell me things like, when I would film someone, I would stop and start filming someone speaking. And I was literally told by these people that I am encouraging violence by filming because I'm paying attention, you know. And I was literally grabbed and shoved and had to shove back on a few different occasions because of that. Because, you know, I was stopping, you know, and there was a crowd of us media people filming someone. So, yeah, so it was a bit crazy.
Well, did the Ferguson, the protesters, was there any real recognized leadership?
I saw
like organized leadership, no?
What I saw was the clergy kind of ruled the daytime, and then the angrier, younger folks kind of ruled the night. That's kind of how I perceived it. That's the feeling I got when I was there. The clergy folks would organize the marching in the daytime, and Clergy United actually had a bread truck set up and a barbecue, and they're feeding people and giving people things to drink. And they were walking around with a bullhorn and organizing chanting and things like that. But as far as people organizing a cogent list of demands, I didn't really see that myself.
Yeah, right.
But I'm really not. I didn't really feel as if though I was part of this protest. I felt as if though I was more of a journalist kind of covering it.
Gotcha.
But yeah. So that's kind of how I perceived it. I have to say this though, for the community of Ferguson, there was some stuff there that I saw that was just like, touching and amazing. Basically, all in that 10 block strip of road I described, that little mini martial law, all the storefronts, except maybe one or two, were boarded up. And this is for that community. That's the grocery store and the corner store and the drugstore. All this stuff was closed. There were people organizing bags of diapers and baby formula, and they would show up. Now, these are community groups, and sometimes they're churches, sometimes they're just groups of people. They would show up in a van and pull up in a parking lot and just organize these essential items: baby formula, bottled water, diapers, prenatal vitamins. I saw that too, like just toothpaste, toothbrushes, indigent packs type stuff. And they would organize the bags out, and they would have people line up, and they'd have people take stuff that they needed. And I'm a huge fan of mutual aid as opposed to charity. And just to explain that to your audience, charity is you just giving someone something, and that's good in a way, but it also kind of just makes them kind of dependent on you, because you can give them something and they can eat today, but then tomorrow there's nothing in their cabinets. But a mutual aid is, and it's a stranger giving it to you. That's the most defining quality of the nature of just plain charity. It's a stranger giving it to you. Mutual aid to me is when a community actually establishes a systematic way to support their neighbors, and that's what I saw. That way there's a interaction between the giver and the taker, and they're actually forming a familiar bond with one another. And I'm a big fan of mutual aid, and I saw lots of that in Ferguson, and it was their own community taking care of itself. There was no place you could get water, and there was no bathrooms. There was a porta potty at one end of the street, and people were going and buying, collectively pitching in cash together. I saw this numerous times, and buying bottles of Gatorade and bottled water and just filling it up in wheelbarrows and pushing it around the protest and handing it to people. I found that just heartwarming, inspiring, and just plain awesome. So I like, and I'm very inspired by the mutual aid that I saw that community providing itself.
Yeah, people. You got all these people, these prepper types, that think, when the end of the world comes, that it's gonna be okay. It's good. But I think there'll be a lot more reasonable people, just like we run into in the street every day, But that's
right.
Yeah. Now, what about let's get into the looting thing. Now, did you really notice any significant looting? As far as I know, it was a couple of buildings and a couple of fires.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing about the looting, right? Sure. Just to describe my political perspective, so the audience knows where I'm coming from, and I'll do it really quickly because I don't want to bore you. I'm a cross between an anarchist and a libertarian, meaning I want to limit government so small that it practically doesn't exist. Therefore, we don't need to use that. We don't have a need for it anymore. So I'm anarchist, but I also respect private property, right. And I feel that destroying someone else's private property is force and wrong. But that being said, the level of response that I saw to the burning of one building and the smashing of a few windows, because it was maybe, from what I could see, maybe 30 windows in one quick trip. Okay, to try to understand the looting, I did some Googling around the St. Louis area. Okay, so Ferguson may as well be St. Louis because it's like, Portland and Beaverton. They're right beside, Beaverton is a little suburb of Portland, and the same thing with every other major metropolitan city. So these people burn down a Quick Trip when they're rioting and whatnot. Well, when I Google Quick Trip and St. Louis, can you guess how many Quick Trips there are? It's like a little convenience store. How many Quick Trips do you think there are in St. Louis within a 10 square mile area?
Oh, I don't know. I've never heard of it, so I can't imagine it's that many. But I guess a lot, 100.
Close. Within 10 miles, there is literally 75 Quick Trips.
Okay.
So, oh my God, it's the Negro apocalypse. The St. Louis is going to have to survive on 74 Quick Trips. Let's call in the National Guard. It's the end of the world. Let's tear gas a neighborhood for a week and a half. It's bedlam. Call the president. The world's coming to an end. Let's establish martial law. I'm being facetious here, but sure. I just found it incredible. Yes, property destruction is wrong. Yes, smashing people's windows is wrong. But I don't think the remedy is militarized cops denying anyone civil liberties systematically, and tear gassing a neighborhood for a week and a half is an appropriate response to that. Considering that I have eyewitness reports that said they saw hundreds of cops standing across the street doing nothing when they burned this building down. I also saw and talked to groups of people that looked like anarchists in black bloc attire, standing in front of businesses preventing looting. I saw lines of people with masks on that didn't want their faces filmed, protecting the businesses from being looting. Specifically, Ferguson Market and Liquor, the building, the business where Mike Brown supposedly stole these little cigarillos or these cigarettes out of the store. And I found that kind of interesting, that you had community people from Ferguson standing in front of businesses trying to prevent the looting, yet the cops couldn't manage to do it. So that's kind of my rundown on the looting situation there.
Well, don't you think that the cops were really the instigators of the antagonism between the people in the neighborhood there and the police? Because, they left this young man's body out there for 4 hours. When his
Sure.
family, we were trying to go up there and cover the body up. They prevent him. And then they drove, when they set up the first makeshift memorial, the cops drove over it in their cars.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I talked to people who saw them run They also brought dogs out. Oh, let me tell you, the use of dogs to provoke the crowd I found just incredible. I mean, like I said, not my first rodeo, and I've been through so many crowd control situations that I can't name them all on your show. But I repeat, I have never seen them bring canine units into riotous situations. And all that does is evoke images of the 1960s. You said you were a yippie,
Yeah.
of in Alabama when they were sicking dogs and fire hoses. That's all that does is evoke a fear response.
I'm surprised they didn't use fire hoses down there. It was so outrageous with these flashbang grenades.
It was really.
Now, what about horses?
Crazy.
They didn't come in with horses?
No horses. I saw that last time I dealt with horses in any large capacity was the NATO protest in 2012. But no horses. That was the only thing they didn't trot out.
Yeah, because back in New York they would use horses. It was very effective. You can't argue with a horse. No,
you can't.
Yeah.
They're not a big fan of having their vision obscured, though. Horses aren't. But that's another conversation for when I'm not on the radio. Okay. Oh goodness.
What about how was Al Sharpton received? Speaking of FBI.
Speaking of FBI, a lot of the younger protesters that I talked to, the 18 to 25-year-old type people, basically thought he was a joke. Like the people there, at one point, I didn't include this footage because I just thought it was divisive and it just didn't really suit what I was trying to portray. But
Sure.
On, I think it was the 20th, I went to, I marched with a group of protesters up to Ferguson's police station. It was the day the National Guard left. So the National Guard, when they were saying in the mainstream on the mainstream news that the National Guard went out to Ferguson and they were helping with controlling the crowd, that was the biggest crock of BS I've ever heard. What the National Guard had a command post set up in a shopping center parking lot that they didn't leave out of, and then they surrounded Ferguson's police station. That's all they did. They surrounded police with checkpoints and snipers on the roofs because they were afraid people were going to burn down their police station. That's all the National Guard did. So when they're saying the National Guard helped maintain, no. You had the same cops, the same goonish, pseudo-military. They reminded me of a Peckerwood gang running around with guns. That's what it reminded me of. But anywho, the National Guard surrounded the police station, put snipers on the roofs. But I marched with people the day the National Guard left up to the police station. And guess what the people of Ferguson did?
What?
They peaceably assembled across the street from the police station in a parking lot, played drums, played music, chanted, talked, and left.
Yeah, your impression of the people that live in this neighborhood is that they're not in any way a threat. Why did these cops overreact so much from the start?
Well, personally, like when I came home and read all my social network stuff, people were saying that it's not about race, or people were saying it is about race and activists shouldn't go down there and blah, blah, blah. My feelings is though it was about race, and allow me to explain a little bit. Ferguson is 85% black population, wise. Their police force is about 90% white.
Yeah.
So that physical, social affirmation is being made, even if it's on a subconscious level, when they're when they're interacting with their police, right? So, and something else is, as I was doing some reading about what's going on in Ferguson, and they actually issued something like a third amount of arrest warrants for the population,
right,
like last year in Ferguson. Like 1/3 of their population had arrest warrants issued. Like there was that not specifically for those individuals, but there was enough arrest warrants issued from that community to represent 1/3 of the population.
Yeah, because all the tickets, because they get all that revenue from tickets, yeah.
And they get, and most of it has to do with, you're right, moving violations. So, and there's another problem with St. Louis. St. Louis has a whole lot of little municipal police forces all surrounding it, and they're all competing for revenue generated for their tax base, and they have overlapping jurisdictions. So the people that live in Ferguson have a feeling when they're driving down the road, they're not just going to the grocery store. They're not going to Payless to get some shoes. They're going to Payless to get some shoes and try to avoid being hunted on the road.
Yeah.
Because literally their feeling is that they're being hunted and harassed constantly by police. And if you combine the fact that most of their cops are white with the fact that these municipalities have overlapping jurisdictions and they're all competing for the same tax revenue or money they can suck out of the people, it's just a powder keg, man. And when this kid was shot, you know, and I feel from my interviews of the people that it was unjustified. And then his body was allowed to lay there for so long, and the way that the police responded to the people coming out to put up a memorial, they actually ran over the memorial with cars, actually show up at the memorial with dogs and semi-automatic rifles. I think the racial component and the poor handling of this situation by the cops around Ferguson and the really poor judgment that was done by the police, you combine all those things together and you just have a, well, how do I say this without expletives? A feces sandwich without the bread that everybody has to take a bite out of. I mean, it was just a really bad set of circumstances. But race definitely plays a dominant role for the reasons that I touched on.
Well, one of the other things, too, is the school district is 100% white. Like, they couldn't even give, like, the janitor job, man, to a black guy, you know, or a landscaping job, you know, like, you know, oh, my God. Just can you imagine that growing up, man, you know, you go to the school, everybody's white. Everyone in the cops is white. You know, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. I mean, and to get back to the brainwashing thing, I mean, if you think about the most common depictions of Jesus, you know, there's a really great song I like. It's called, The Hustle. It's by a rapper named Paris. And it's all ain't no hustle like religious hustle because religious hustle don't stop. I mean, we portray in most churches that Jesus is this dirty, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like, white guy. So if you grow up, I mean, just try. It's hard to actually understand what it's like to be black as a white person, but I can try. And when I try, I imagine growing up in a church that tells me Jesus is white, and then I imagine growing up in public school where all the authority figures are white. I have a white teacher. I have a white janitor. I have a white principal. You know, my basketball and my football coaches are white. And then all my cops are white. You know, like, so authority is white. You know, that's like hammered into my subconscious.
Santa Claus.
You know, I mean, yeah, like Santa Claus, you know. I mean, there's no black Santa, you know. I mean, it's got to, like, really F with a person's psychology to have that done to them. You know, it's just got to.
Yeah, and then when you got all this rap music, man, it's just like, you know, like just beating into your head over and over and over again to just basically, you know, throw your life away in many respects.
Well, yeah, that's very prominent, like those kind of themes. Any youth culture, you have disposable individuals, whether it be heavy metal or rap or whatnot.
Yeah, true.
Although there's a lot of really socially conscious awesome, socially aware, intellectual hip-hop type stuff. I mean, I'm a really big fan of Immortal Technique. I love Paris. I'm a really huge fan of KRS-One. He's another socially conscious rapper that just does really awesome stuff. You know, there's music out there that's in that genre that's just uplifting and just empowering, you know. But you got to find it. But that doesn't turn us into good consumers. You know, if we have a disposable outlook on life as human beings, we're going to buy more stuff to fill that artificial hole inside us that we haven't learned how to fulfill. And that's the point of most consumer advertising campaigns, is to, you know, make us have a a sense of a lacking something inside us, so we try to fill that hole with external baubles. I want to have an iPhone, iPad, fancy computer. I want to have a nice car with bling on it. I want to have nice jewelry. It's all about what's external, and that kind of output in media is done for that reason. And that particular thing transcends race. I mean, they want us all a bunch of, servile consumption nodes,
But as far as rap goes, and I gave up on rap, man, a long time ago, because I grew up, listening to Grandmaster Flash, I grew up in the Bronx. I lived in the Bronx,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Listening to
cool.
Grandmaster Flash.
Yeah, Run DMC and the old school shit. Oh, stuff.
Hey, wait, watch your language there, young man. Hey, but Grandmaster Flash.
I let it slip out.
He's living in poverty now. Grandmaster Flash is broke right now, and here you got Jay-Z,
Oh, wow.
and P. Diddy and all these guys, man, billionaires, So there's obviously something going on there that doesn't wash. But again, because you said you never met a conspiracy theory you didn't like.
Sure.
What do you think then about Al Sharpton coming down there with his FBI connections and all this kind of stuff and bringing in? He's calling to bring in the federal government. We need federal prosecutors. And then you got right behind him Holder coming in, a federal prosecutor. Do you think that's good or no?
I think that's a scary Orwellian type of thing. Because basically the left wing are all it's really funny to me. I mean, can I get into the left wing psychology? And I'll totally answer your question with the way I answer.
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead, man. You're great.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so left versus right is a Hegelian dialectic type trick that the masses get played on it. If I say I support a right wing idea, then all of a sudden anybody who's listening to me talk assumes that I'm against the left, and it foments a false fight between the two polar opposites. Instead of concentrating on the money classes, the ownership class that actually run everything, we can just fight with one another. And I think that's fomented on purpose to basically turn everyone into slaves, black, white, or green. So, and basically the right wing are, they're a solar mill type psychology. The right wing's going to protect you from these external enemies, and we're going to be a strong father type figure, and you have to go out on your own and be strong and, be conservative. The right wing is more of a mother or a feminine kind of psychology that they play upon. We're going to take care of you and provide you all these social welfare programs, and, we're going to get you micromanaged from cradle to grave with, a social worker from the time that you're an embryo until you're, in the ground while your fingernails and hair are still growing. But the way the left and the right are designed to play off of each other, it's methodical. They want us fighting with one another so we don't pay attention to the fact that the Federal Reserve is printing more money than we can actually spend, and inflation has run away, and inflation is basically a hidden tax. And, both right and left politicians are owned by the same banks, and central banks loan money to opposite countries having wars with each other since Napoleon. They don't want us paying attention to these kind of things, so they want us fighting. So to bring more government into the equation is just merely the left wing, Eric Holder and Mr. Sharpton coming down there saying, "Oh, we need government oversight." We don't need more cops in this equation. We need more informed, enlightened citizens that feel empowered, that assert and understand their rights, and understand the fact that they can use things like electoral processes, and use things like social media, and use things like consent and understanding to actually affect their communities in a positive way. So I think it's a horrible thing. We don't need a super cop in Ferguson, a federal appointed swine czar,
or even
our police czar.
The feds running the investigation, doing their own autopsy. I see no benefit in that at all, other than Sharpton's agenda. Who's an FBI informant? He's not an FBI informant. He's an FBI asset going around wiretapping people for the FBI.
Sure. I think it's part of the control paradigm that the neoliberal agenda wants to march forth, and it's BS. It's more smoke and mirrors. More government's gonna take care of you. But I mean, if you read Department of Justice statistics, you're far more likely to die from a police bullet domestically than a terrorist. You know, you're like a few 100% more likely to be killed by a cop than a terrorist. Since the invasion of Iraq, more soldiers, actually more cops have killed American citizens than soldiers. Our soldiers have died over there in the conflicts. You know, the way that people perceive policing in this country is the problem. And what I mean by that is that people are content to sit back and allow their own defense, the protection of their own property, the protection of their neighbor's property, hell, up to the police. But the problem with that is that it takes, 3 or 4 minutes to get through the 911 system. It takes another 3 or 4 minutes for the cops to get there if you're lucky. In some neighborhoods, it takes as much as a half an hour. By that time, the event's already taken care of. And let's do a hypothetical. If I'm walking down the street and someone mugs me, and I call the cops, when the police show up, there's little forms they can fill out. There's somebody that's a victim and somebody else that's an assailant. Personally, I don't like choice A or choice B. I don't want to victimize anybody, and I don't want to be a victim. Police are basically they're secretaries with guns.
Yeah, they're
after
like
an event
the
already happens.
McDonald's workers, one for Big Mac meal. Number two. Yeah, it's been going on. It's been since that started in the 80s with Giuliani. He created that in the New York City Police Department.
Yeah.
And you know what they do too is, in order to make it look like crime statistics are lower, they reduce. If you say like, "Hey, my house is broken into, I got robbed," they say, "Okay, we're going to do a missing property report." So it's not a burglary.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Missing property.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah, that started with Giuliani. Oh, the crime rate went down. Under Giuliani.
I call him Giuliani.
Yeah. No, he's a creepy guy. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, very creepy. What was I saying? I got distracted.
About how they were secretaries and filling out the forms.
Oh yeah. Police are basically a secretary with a gun. I mean, they can show up and they can write down. Oh well, what happened? Oh yeah, I'll go and try to figure out how to help you do that. But by the time the ink's dry on the notepad, they're already being sent out to the next call. And the problem with that whole psychology is that there's no justice in the equation. Like if I got mugged and the person that mugged me beat me on the head and the police came and filed a report, like they can't miracle the bruise off my skull. They can't wave some magic wand in the air or show me their badge of authority and suture my skull back together. The injustice is still prevalent, So it's kind of a lose-lose situation unless people can get beyond that psychology that sending more people with force and guns and weapons is going to somehow create peace. Peace isn't achieved through swinging sticks or pepper spray or mace or having guys in cars drive around with little whirly-bird red and blue lights on the roofs. Peace is achieved through community looking out for itself, through everyone knowing their neighbor, from people walking across the street and meeting the person that lives across from you and hey, something doesn't look right in my neighbor's garage. Maybe I should go over and have a look at that. If we all started acting more involved with each other instead of being so disconnected, I think society would be greatly benefited. Now, there's two primary methodologies of policing in America. There's a community-based methodology that's used by some police forces, and then there's a reactionary-based model. Most communities, most large cities use the reactionary-based model, like what I just described. If something happens and the police are called, they're there and they show up and they try to control the situation. And let's see, did we get here fast enough to actually catch the person that did it? Well, 90% of the time, no. But hey, we scared the heck out of a lot of people and held up traffic and took some really darn good reports. And we'll look for that person later. And then there's a community-based model, which has its advantages because in a community-based model, the police actually do more foot patrols. They actually walk around in the neighborhood and interact with the citizens that they patrol, and they get to know people. And then, personally, I think the community-based model makes a lot of sense. Although I don't think people should be I don't think it's healthy for our nation for us to be leaning so heavily on our police forces for our own well-being, because it erodes people's ability to understand what their rights are, and it erodes our ability to collectively feel like we're connected to our fellow man and woman enough to where we can actually take care of our own problems. And as an anarchist, I would love it if humanity would evolve to a point. In my fantasy world, humanity would evolve to a point to where we don't need as many police, or any for that matter, because of enlightened self-interest. I mean, the way I perceive it in my heart of hearts is that when I harm another human being, I'm in actuality harming myself. I'm destroying something within me when I harm another person, and I call that enlightened self-interest. Therefore, I don't want to hurt other people because I understand that it's detrimental. And I think humanity will eventually evolve to this point, but we're not there yet. And I think the psychology of policing and the way that we psychologically lean on them encourages violence in a way.
Well, then let me ask you this, okay? Under the situation, the conditions that we're living under right now, do you recommend people to call the police if there's something, or because when you invite the police into your life, you're pretty much asking for trouble, and you have a better chance of getting arrested than the guy you're calling them on. So what do you think?
I think that if it is not a dire emergency, I personally recommend my friends not call the police.
Yeah.
I really don't see an advantage in it. If I wrong someone, like if I'm on the road and our cars bump into each other, I would much rather talk to that person and say, hey, how can I make you whole, and how can you make me whole? Because we don't need a cop showing up in government, because as far as I'm concerned, government is force. We elect government officials to meter out force on our behalf because it maintains some sort of an illusion of stability of the society. Okay, government is force. That's what it is by its very nature. We elect these people to use force on our behalf. And what that does is absolve us psychologically of a responsibility for our own actions. It kind of turns people into children in a way. And I think that's very dangerous.
I agree with you. I agree with you for sure. And there's just so much nonsense out there. Like even, because as soon as they show up, they're going to run everybody for warrants, Of course. Yeah, and there's so much misinformation in those databases. 20% is inaccurate. People don't realize, even this big NCIC computer, all this big fancy stuff they got, it's all crap, And so you're just asking for trouble if you call the cops into your life.
Absolutely. That's what I feel. I really feel that.
So, okay, so now that was Ferguson. Do you have anything else you want to add on Ferguson, or you want to?
I think that people really need to react the way that I did with Ferguson. I was lucky enough to have the means to go down there and exploit my talents for the greater good. I think that the next time that there's a civil unrest situation, because it's going to happen, there's going to be another Ferguson. And we have a floating police state in our country. And what I mean by that briefly is that when a situation arises like Ferguson, there's an incredible amount of militarization. The National Guard is called in. You have these guys with rifles. They just deny everybody their civil liberties. But then after the story dies down a little bit, and they don't have to use all these creepy little Orwellian laws that allow them to take this and that and that right away from you. After the mainstream narrative stops talking about the story, society goes back to normal. They go back to default. We go back to our, we go back to our music and our sports and our iPods and our social networks, and we stop paying attention. And then the government gets to go, and society itself gets to say, oh, see, you live in a free society. We're not tear gassing the neighborhood this weekend. See, you live in a free society. There wasn't 40 people arrested yesterday. You live, and then slowly over time, what happens when this floating police state clamps down in one area after the other, is that we get conditioned to acquiesce to the normalization of, hey, there's guys in riot gear with mine-resistant vehicles with machine guns on top. Oh, I've seen that before. So I think we're being incrementally conditioned via this floating police state to accept this. And that is a society that I don't want to live in. That's why I do what I do in regards to monitoring the police. I consider it a public service. So I think that people need to react the way I do. I did have the means to go down to Ferguson and exploit my talents to try to help by filming what was going on. I filmed some arrests. I filmed a bunch of the violence that happened that I could see. I tried to document what was going on with these Clergy United people. And if your talent isn't videography, it could be something else, But we must start reacting as if though it's our community, because if we don't, by the time this floating police state cycles over to our community, no one will be paying attention, no one will care. And that, to me, I think is the greatest disservice we could do to one another, is to not react as if though this is our community that it's happening in.
Yeah,
so that's all I have to say about Ferguson.
We got to resist. We have to resist whatever bone in our body.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the media coverage of Ferguson? Do you think it was sellout? What do you think? And tell me, what do you think of the mainstream media coverage down there?
Well, I think mainstream media is used to outputting a product that's designed to facilitate the wants and desires of the elite. And they're also so polarized into this false Orwellian, Hegelian argument between right and left, that they're just pumping out a product. And they don't have time in the current format that they exist in to even cover a story in a way that's well-rounded. I'll give a quick example, something I could do on my YouTube channel that the mainstream media refused or just didn't do or couldn't manage to do. I mentioned that free speech zone, that designated media area before. That was in the parking lot there. If you look straight down the street, literally 5 blocks, you can see the first house at the edge of the neighborhoods. And you can see the second house down from there. From that parking lot where you had Anderson Cooper and you had all the other mainstream media outlets, you can see the neighborhood. When tear gas was used day after day after day, and when I interviewed people, they said sometimes that they would go as long as 5 or 6 hours. One tear gas canister after another, after another, after another. They had a thing that looked like a mortar launcher on the back of the mine-resistant vehicle that it would just lob it out of, like,
really,
like 4 or 5 at a time, and just drop it on the ground. Neighborhood.
Yeah, people live in that
5
neighborhood.
blocks away, in every direction, are single-family home after single-family home after single-family home. I documented with just a couple images from Google Maps what the mainstream media failed to report. The mainstream media failed to report the fact that they tear gassed a neighborhood for a week. A residential, mostly single-family home neighborhood. And they could see it from the parking lot that they all resided in. So I know they had that information in their little, I was so angry. I mean, I was happy that I got a chance to heckle Anderson Cooper. That was nice. I mean, I can't tell you on air what I called him, but I haven't even put that video on YouTube, but it wasn't pretty what I had to say to him. But yeah, so I was able to, in 1 little minute video, just document, hey, this was in fact a neighborhood every time they used tear gas. They only showed, in the mainstream media, they'd show them busting up the Quick Trip and tearing up the McDonald's or tearing up stuff in front of the McDonald's over and over again on this tape loop like a metronome. It was mind-numbing to see what they were portraying in the mainstream media. They weren't saying, hey, kids can't play in their front yards in the whole neighborhood for a week. Forget it if you're elderly and you have to go to get on mass transit, because guess what? They shut down the bus system for a week and a half. like you have to stay home and put tape underneath your front door so that the tear gas doesn't go in and choke your asthmatic roommate to death.
Wait.
So,
If these are two and three bedroom homes, it's because they have children or they have an elderly grandmother or somebody living there,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, brother. Now, what about back to the conspiracy theory type stuff?
Oh, cool. I love it.
Okay, great. Well, that's one of my topics, is conspiracy theories. But,
oh, nice.
Oh yeah, I think you'd like my show. We had last week we had I keep forgetting his first name, John Potash, who wrote the book about the Tupac murder. He's an old Black Panther guy and stuff like that.
Nice.
Oh yeah, Lorenzo Kumbawa, Irvin. We had Cindy Sheehan, Cynthia McKinney.
I love Cynthia McKinney. I love that famous video on YouTube when she's reaming Donald Rumsfeld about the $2.3 trillion and the Kellogg Brown and Root and the child trafficking ring.
Yeah.
She just gave it to him like a redheaded stepchild. It was beautiful to watch him just squirm in his chair. I actually had the opportunity to hug Cynthia McKinney. It was a really great feeling. Yeah.
Very well. She's cool in person too. I was nervous.
She is awesome.
But back to conspiracy theories. Yeah, you would like my show, though. I think you would.
I'll check it out after this, especially because I'm a bit narcissistic.
You're gonna listen to yourself, right?
Yeah, man.
Okay, now the thing about that guy who was the Oath Keeper, and then he was they caught him, pushing one of the CNN newscasters.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that story?
I am not.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
Oh, my God. Okay, I don't know how to explain this to you. Okay.
Give me the short version.
One of the CNN newscasters was doing his report, and this cop comes in, and he pushes him back all aggressive, kind of like he was acting. He looked like
like the black. Oh, I did see that. It was a black cop. It was a black news guy, right?
Right, and he was hamming it up a little bit. Then they showed, some guy came out and said, hey, look, these are all crisis actors. Because look at this guy and look at his speech over here before these Oath Keepers where he's talking about, I kill people for a living, and Obama doesn't have his birth certificate and all this stuff like that. He's giving this great big speech. But now, so this came out. The guy got fired, when it came out. But when CNN plays the story, they never mention that the guy was outed originally as a crisis actor. They only say that he was making this inflammatory speech.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think that both the right and the left are so interested in making each other look bad and fomenting these divisive issues because they both tend to make a lot of money out of it, that they are hiring people to act as crisis actors to further their own agendas. I totally believe that. So I didn't do any research into this particular story, but I totally believe that kind of stuff happens. Also, the level of contempt and outright borderlining on assaulting of journalists, both mainstream and alternative journalists, that was going on in Ferguson by the police was just beyond the pale of anything I've ever seen before. I mean, there was on the 16th or 17th, a couple days before I showed up, there was a mainstream news crew that was set up. They had lights set up to do a live shot and a tripod and, a $30,000 camera set up. And the police announced over LRAD, turn your cameras off, and they threw tear gas.
Yeah, that was Al Jazeera.
6 feet. Yeah, 6 feet right in front of an international news crew. Right. It was literally 6 feet in front. I've seen the video and calculated by, since I use video equipment, I know about the spread of a tripod along the bottom. You can measure. It's about 3 feet, 4 feet max, a tripod that's expanded to the max. So you can just measure with your fingers across the screen. It was about 5.5, 6 feet in front of them where they threw the tear gas. So they said, turn off your cameras, and they shot the tear gas. I saw cops just go after people with cameras, go after people with cameras, go after people with cameras, go after people with cameras. They were cognizant of it as if though that was something that they were being briefed on to do by their sergeants in the morning. Let's make sure we can get as many cameras, blocked and obscured as we possibly can. I mean, I can just totally see that conversation going down. So whether or not this was crisis actors or that, I'm not 100% sure on, but I have done some research into the crisis actor thing, and it's like real life astroturfing. You're familiar with that concept, yes?
No, I've never heard that expression before.
Oh, well, it's a real easy concept, and it's the Pentagon does it all the time, but so do private corporations. Astroturfing is when a corporation or a government, and sometimes even nonprofits do it. They will hire people to go on a social network and start dummy accounts to promote an idea. So then you'll have, they'll hire 500 people to go into all the newspapers and the comments, the online, letters to the editor and all the Facebook groups about a given subject. But that's astroturfing. And it's done by governments, corporations, and nonprofits all the time. They hire, some places, if they have a lot of money, they'll hire a whole warehouse full of people to astroturf for them. So that's what these crisis actors are doing. They're, real life astroturfers. And it's totally common practice at this point. Whether it's some sort of, one world government, Illuminati conspiracy to bring about martial law, or to foment, the perpetuation of martial law via our acquiescence to a fear-based kind of thing. I think that might be stretching it. I've read all those theories as well. I think that these corporations and governments and nonprofits have similar agendas. It's basically all profit motivation. So if the end result or the end goal of a corporation is to make money for its shareholders, right? Because by law, a corporate charter says that all other concerns have to fall short of maximizing profits for shareholders. That's what a corporation is. That's why it's called limited liability. It limits legal liability off of the actual shareholders and provides them with profit. They're legally bound to put environment, to put human safety, to put all other concerns second to profit motivations. So if you have thousands of corporations, and hundreds of governments that are the most powerful, and they all have that same monetary kind of agenda, you'll start to see similar patterns because they're all vying for power. So in my humble opinion, conspiracies happen. Corporations are cutthroat and evil and vile, and all they want to do is systematically see how much wealth they can extract from the environment and from human beings and from governments, and they know no allegiances other than their profit motive. So you will see similar patterns arise. The problem, I think, with conspiracy theory is some people start seeing these similarities and patterns and then start to stack them all on top of one another. And I kind of think it's kind of a dangerous way of thinking, but I'm not saying conspiracies don't happen, because these people do conspire in the dark. They do, hey, let's try to bend these laws and break these laws. There's a reason why corporations have armies of lawyers. It's because they're lying, they're stealing, they're oppressing, they're destroying free speech. They're doing whatever they can to rob and extract as much wealth for themselves as they possibly can. But I don't really buy into this whole, omni conspiracy. But there are some groups that would love it if they could control the world.
Because now, like an incident like Sandy Hook, okay? Do you believe that's a crisis actor type situation?
I think that some of the people speaking to the mainstream media were probably crisis actors in that situation. Some of the stuff I've seen on YouTube comparing, the ones where they'll say, hey, this crisis actor was at that event and now they're at this event. Some of that stuff is quite compelling. And there is a very high moneyed, well-resourced anti-gun agenda in a lot of these corporations. And I could totally see how stuff like Sandy Hook and mass shootings, they want to try to, get rid of the arms that people have. And that would be a good way to do it, is to sensationalize the hell out of all this violence. So yeah, that's my feelings about the Sandy Hook type thing.
Okay, but the actual shooting then in that incident,
The actual shooting.
Yeah, couldn't be hoaxed as well.
Well, you mean not really? You mean that they really didn't shoot people?
Yeah, some people say that there were no deaths, there were no shootings. Adam Lanza was a hoax. The whole thing.
I think that I think these shootings are probably real shootings, and that the governments or the corporations or the NGOs that promote and pay these crisis actors when they do use crisis actors, because it's a mixed bag in my opinion. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's a crisis actor.
Yeah.
I feel that they're probably real shootings because that stuff has happened. You can't fix stupid. I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of people on prescription meds in every major city, and they're all going through all kinds of psychological problems, and sometimes people snap and just start shooting folks. I think it's real, but I think that the governments and these groups with agendas step in as soon as an event happens and tries to control and dominate the situation. I mean, I'll give a perfect example.
Go ahead.
In 2012, when there was that hurricane in New York, what was that little town that was inundated with a hurricane? I forgot the name of the town it was.
Hurricane Sandy?
It flooded. Yeah, when Hurricane Sandy happened in New York.
Staten Island, Midland Beach?
And all those places flooded.
Yeah.
What's funny is Greenpeace sent down these aid trucks, right? And they had these solar panels on the roofs, and they had, climate change, these aid trucks, these big, giant bus-looking things with solar panels on their roofs and stuff, right? And they had these ads on the side about global warming and climate change. So what they were doing was using a philanthropic act as a means to get those climate change ads on the mainstream media, because the media people would go into the neighborhoods and interview people, and behind them would be the climate change ads and stuff.
Right.
So that is an example of a group using a crisis or a tragedy as a means to promote their own ideas. And everybody does it, right wing, left wing, chicken wing, everybody does it. It doesn't matter the political ideology because they're all going from the same playbook, man.
Well, I agree with you. There's no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, right wing, left wing.
No.
Oh yeah, because it's all the same oligarchy. But
they're all tyrants.
But see, I really, and I'm 53 years old, and today I see no left. Today I see no organized left. You can't call Obama left or Hillary Clinton left. Who is
no. Hillary?
Yeah, right. You can't call Al Sharpton the left.
Barack W. Bush.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So when you say left, right, there is left out there. You got Hugo Chavez is the left, and they killed him. So I think that the left has been killed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as our political, perceptual political spectrum, we have neoconservatives and neoliberals now. They're kind of morphing into and out of one another. It's really creepy.
Yeah,
like Bush claimed to be a conservative, but what exactly was he conserving? Government bloated a few 100% during his tenure. He wasn't a conservative. He was a corporatist.
Yeah,
he didn't save any money. He spent more than Clinton did. By many factors, and then Obama got on and claimed to be a liberal, but what did he do? Continue quite a few of Bush's right-wing ideological foreign and domestic policies. I felt that Obama was Bush with a Democratic paint job. So the right and the left are kind of smearing into each other, into this ugly soup of vile corporatism. Corporatism is the 21st century way of saying fascist. I mean, don't get me started on that. I mean, if you research what people love to throw around words, like, oh, that's fascist when they say something that's totalitarian. I mean, when I try to think about what fascism is, I go to the person that invented it, the person that coined the term, Benito Mussolini, and established the first quote unquote fascist government. Mussolini said, during World War II, that fascism should be more accurately referred to as corporatism, because fascism is the marriage of the corporation to the state.
Exactly.
What we have in America is a fascist government, but if you say that, they think it's right-wing and totalitarian, because that's what it says in the dictionary. But oh no, my friends, like right now, in Mussolini's fascism, the government took over the corporations and dictated how this fascistic relationship would work. In America in the 21st century, it's the reverse. The corporations have taken over the government, but the net result for humanity, the net result for the poor and underprivileged black and Mexican and white folks is this. It's tyranny. The government and corporate relationship is just as strong as it was in Benito Mussolini's time in his fascist government, but it's just given different names. It's given a pretty smile. You had a very few choices in Mussolini's fascism. You had to buy the government goods, and there was only a few government corporations. But what we have now is you have 31 flavors of ice cream, but it's all made from the same feces. You have regular extra crispy. You have 200 TV cable TV channels, and it's all being output by the same 5 corporations, and so on and so on. So we have this illusion of choice, but it's basically just a whole bunch of corporate garbage. But we have the same result. We still live in a fascist society as much or even more so than Benito Mussolini had set up, and him and his buddy Hitler ran, the same kind of fascist totalitarian government. It was just under the guise. Hitler's National Socialism was basically a fascist government that had phony left-wing cover. What we have in America is a phony left-right vacillating cover that's basically a corporate totalitarian fascist state.
Yeah, you got a wonderful way of putting things. I love the way you throw in this stuff with the chips and stuff you throw in, I love it, man. But the thing is, if you notice, they got at least 40% of the population, because about 40% of the country votes. And and they got 41% of that, 49% of that is for Obama, and 51% is for Romney. They're the exact same. They're funded by the exact same banks, the same Wall Street companies, but they are rapidly biting and fighting with each other, all on Facebook 24 hours a day. If the other one gets in, it's the end of the world, when they're exactly the same. Now that's some real serious conditioning and brainwashing, man. It's accident, amazing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about this stuff, I feel like Morpheus in The Matrix when he says that I watched in horror as the dead was liquefied and fed to the newly born living. Like, what this fight between right and left does is it saps and destroys our natural, innate instinct to resist. It's perfectly natural to want to fight back when you're being oppressed, either economically or physically. It's perfectly natural if someone's trying to snatch your purse for a woman to pull the strings back. It's perfectly natural for someone to say, no, I don't want to be fined or taxed or levied for this, because it's immoral. I find no government. You can have a bake sale if you want to start another war. How about Uncle Sam goes out on the corner and sells some lemonade? No, stop taking money out of my paycheck without my permission before I even get it to fund foreign wars of empire. How about that? But see, when we spend all of our effort and mental energy on fighting in these political arenas psychologically, right versus left, Democrat versus Republican, anarchist versus libertarian versus socialist. We're separated in all these little subgroups, and we're backbiting each other like a bunch of little newly born puppies while the kennel owner is sitting there going, well, when that dog gets a little bigger, I think I might sell it, or maybe I'll breed this one, but I'm going to get rid of that trait because I don't like it. And you have these sycophantic, demented oligarchs squatting on top of us, eating the substance out of every nation on earth, enjoying the fact that all the slaves are fighting amongst themselves because of their quote-unquote ideological alignment. And it's beautiful and scary at the same time because we are literally conditioned to fight with one another. And it sucks away our energy. And then by the time they implement a new policy or a new law that's more totalitarian, that's more oppressive, we've wasted all our energy, and all we want to do is go home after a day's work and drink a beer. Or maybe if we have enough time to kiss our kids at night before we go to bed, we can have 5 minutes with our children. That's why TV gets to raise people's kids. It's because, the economy is so terrible that people have to work so many hours and a lot of people have two jobs. And you combine that with this constant droning of propaganda between different groups of various social alignments, and people are psychologically and mentally so exhausted and beat down that they can't naturally resist tyranny. And I think that's kind of the point. The banks own all these politicians. I think that's their point. I mean, speaking of conspiracies, there's a guy that I used to listen to quite a bit online, but I haven't paid attention to his media in over 4 years. Is Alex Jones.
Yeah.
The InfoWars guy.
Yeah.
But there was an expression he used that I found just brilliant. And he used it just once or twice at the few years that I listened to his radio show. He said, presidents are like birdcage liner. When you change out the birdcage liner and you put a new piece of newspaper on it for the bird to crap on, it's pristine and beautiful and perfect, but as time wears on, the corners get dog-eared, it starts to get stinky, and there's crusty stuff on it. You just can't stand the smell anymore, and you have to snatch it out and get another one. Well, have you ever noticed that when presidents are first trying to get elected, all the magazines covers, they're this handsome, young-looking guy with nice dark hair, and they're, the guy, this is cool guy, he's strong, he's going to take care of you, he's going to do whatever he said that he was going to do to get elected, and he's perfect, he's like a ladies' man. I mean, what are all the girls thinking about Obama, or, whatever, insert politician here, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that as time goes on, look at pictures of presidents year by year that they as it gets towards the end of their 4 or 8 years, these guys' hair starts to get saggy. They start showing pictures of them where they look real tired a lot. Their skin's kind of hanging down. They show a lot more gray hair on the guys. We are psychologically being conditioned to throw all our hopes and dreams and aspirations at the politicians that we feel we identify with. The most brilliant thing I've ever came to understand about political campaigns is this: they keep things vague on purpose, and it serves a specific sort of psychological goal. And the goal is, change we can believe in, hope, a new day, whatever. Like all these basic political slogans that just have no meaning, but they're kind of, they kind of inspire you a little bit. That is so that the viewer and consumer of that piece of propaganda cast their hopes and their aspirations onto the politician. And they're all bought and paid for. They're going to sell you out. The old adage, you can tell when a politician is lying is when their lips are moving. It's not a cliche for a reason. It's a cliche because it's true. Okay. So we're meant to cast all our hopes and dreams and desires for the future onto these politicians and then be disappointed by them. And the reason why is because, there'll be another one along in 4 or 8 years. Meanwhile, the bankers are literally laughing their way through the bank. The fiat currency system is literally using the hidden tax, which is known as inflation, to tyrannize and to erode the actual value of our dollar. The ownership class own all the good land. Corporations are privatizing all the water. Nestle's trying to privatize my water here in Portland, Oregon. Yet we have, it's really insane. Like the the Water Bureau of Portland's crazy talk about fascism. I'd love to just talk about water with you sometime, but that's not kind of the vein of the conversation.
Well, but let me ask you a question though. Like even with the election with Obama and Romney, wasn't there a part of you that kind of wanted to defend Obama against these Romney, even though you knew it was total bullcrap, you knew nothing would change, you still there was something in you that said maybe, and he's a little bit better than Romney, and there's something in me that wants to just defend him. Or I won't defend him because I'll come right out and say I won't defend him. But I want to complain about Romney more than I'm going to complain about Obama.
Every so often, I'll find myself sucked into these kind of things and rooting for a politician, and then I stop myself and I go, oh my God, I feel dirty. But yeah, sometimes I do find myself identifying with the slave masters.
Yeah, right. Okay, listen. Speaking of slave masters, I got to read some ads real quick. And then
man.
Then we're gonna take a little musical break so I can get a drink and stuff like that. Okay, but hey,
I need some water.
Yeah. Well, why don't you get it while I'm reading now, and then we're gonna take a little musical break. Okay. By the way, we have with us tonight Mike Bluehair, and let me see if I can find all his stuff here. He's got a whole bunch of ways to donate to him and stuff like that. He's from Portland Film the Police. Is that what it's called?
Film the Police Portland, yeah.
Film the Police Portland, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And let's see here. All his stuff, man. He's got a YouTube channel called Mike Bluehair. He has a Carrie Faux Truth, which is another YouTube channel. Dr. Bartek, Justin, well, a bunch of YouTube channels he's got here. And he has a WePayDonations.com thing here.
Oh, don't go to the WePay thing. Just go to the homepage on the YouTube channel and donate to the Patreon thing, because the WePay thing should be shut down.
Okay.
I just haven't. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, then let's ignore that, okay? Mike Bluehair, go to youtube.com, Mike Bluehair channel, and there's a way to donate to his patron thing on there. Okay, and then we got, a big thing I'm trying to help out is a friend of mine, Jessica Jacobson. Let me get this real quick. Pull her up. And she has a GoFundMe account because she's in a lot of trouble. She's got 4 beautiful kids. She's raising all on her own here, and she's really struggling. They need stuff for the kids to get to school, and she's a big supporter of the show. And she has a GoFundMe. I'm getting there right now. Oh, boy, this is so professional. Let's see here. Mike's drinking his water. I can hear him drinking over there, glug, glug, enjoying his water. Okay, come on, here we go. Jessica Styron Jacobson, okay? And her GoFundMe page is called, brother. Well, her GoFundMe page is a link to it on the Opperman Report Facebook page. And I'll have a link to that on the Opperman Report blog as well. I can't find it. And then we got Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can email them at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo is your #1 source for timber construction and craft grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, right by my man here, Mike Bluehair. Hey, Mike, if you ever need some bamboo, I want you to contact Amanda over at Pacific West Bamboo. She'll hook you up. She can and do ship nationwide. Okay, InfinityHomePlans.com. That's our buddy Mike Gray. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D, 2D architectural services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, 3D models, renderings, and more. Emailrevealer.com. That's the home of the online infidelity investigation. If you think your spouse is cheating on you, you give me his email address. I'll trace it back to online dating websites, social networks, porn sites, escort service sites. You think you want to have his phone examined, you send me a cell phone and we can recover deleted text messages and pictures. New World Mexican Women. The book is called New World Mexican Women. They're from the southern state of Mexico called Guerrero. Their book is about their love for their men who have come to America to work here and send money back to this town of of mostly women down there in Guerrero, Mexico. Most of the men have left and come to America to support them. And their book is these loving, beautiful love letters to their husbands and their sons and their brothers and stuff. And also, too, they have the second half of the book is about how to make authentic Mexican jewelry, step-by-step guide to that. And you can find that book on lulu.com, and there's a link on the Opperman Report blog. Okay, and Cindy's going to pull us, play a little music for us so I can take a little break. Cindy, you ready to go? 4-minute break we're taking, guys. Be right back. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Everybody knows who I am. Why do I gotta keep telling you? But we're here tonight with Mike Bluehair, who's a really cool guy. And Mike, I want to invite you to call in to these after shows, in the future, if you got a lot to contribute.
Sure,
man.
I think I will. I mean, if this is the format of your show, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've enjoyed myself. Almost 2 hours have passed, and it felt like it just started. I just started to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to get to know people, And I really love doing a show because of that reason. I get to meet such great people like yourself there. And there's not too many people in this alternative media that aren't like caught up in that patriot thing, that patriot game, right wing, Obama's a commie, and just kind of confused.
Oh, sure.
Let me ask you this though now, because I heard you say earlier that you think there's an agenda to take away our guns.
I believe there is.
Yeah. Because now, in my opinion, the people who manufacture these guns and sell these guns for a living are the 1%. They're the elites in charge right now.
Of course.
And so if they wanted a law, first of all, to pass a law to take away the guns, they could do it in a minute. But the thing is, if they wanted to stop producing guns, they would just stop manufacturing the guns and stop selling us the guns.
The thing is,
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Finish. I need you to finish your thought.
If you look in the Mideast, our policy there is to cause disruption and chaos and have them shooting at each other over there. And it seems to be the same policy here, to have the left-right dichotomy going back and forth against each other. Not shooting at each other yet, but I got a feeling that's coming. I got a feeling maybe they want that. So I don't see a real legitimate gun grab going on. I see a scare tactic to make us buy more guns of their guns, to buy guns from them, So what do you got?
I see a gun grab agenda being perpetrated against the general population of the United States. But here's one for you that a lot of people on the stereotypical left don't understand what they're advocating for when they advocate for gun legislation, magazine size, assault features. You can't put a pistol grip on a shotgun because somehow that's going to make it kill more people because there's a place that you can hold it on the bottom of it. But when people on the stereotypical left advocate for gun control, this is what they're actually asking for, and I'll explain to you why. They're actually asking for right-wing, mostly male citizens of the country to have exclusive access and use of guns with impunity. And what I mean by that is most cops are male. Most cops are mostly right-wing. They lean towards the right. So when left-wing people are arguing to get guns out of the hands of the general population, what they're really saying is, I think it'd be a really great idea for mostly exclusively male, mostly exclusively Republican men to have a dominance over the use and application of firearms in America. It scares me.
Yeah, that would scare me too. I don't want the right wing and these right wing nuts.
I don't want any one group to have a dominance over the other because it promotes a sense of superiority, and that's a dark path that we could walk down as a society. It's not good.
Well, what I'll tell you though is, because I've been around a long time, and
sure, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I don't see this coming, man. I don't see any gun grab coming, man. I can guarantee. I would bet you guys that. I went to add Mike Gray. Now we got Ann. How come she's not calling me? If I answer that, no, she's calling me. Oh, she's calling me on a different line. Okay, I'm back. Do we have our guest?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right, Mike. All right. Well, listen, that was a big mistake. We tried to take a caller, and my Skype totally froze up. Okay, well, we only got a couple of minutes left, Mike. I really apologize for the past few minutes.
Oh, God, it's no big deal. I mean, I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too, man. Okay, so we were getting at the whole thing about the whole gun control thing.
Sure.
Well, what else would you like to finish up with?
Well, just that I think ultimately guns is another divisive issue between right and left. And you're right in a way. I feel that if they did get rid of the guns, then they wouldn't have as much justification for the police state. And right now, domestic police forces are one of the largest customer bases they have to sell these guns to domestically. So that wouldn't be any good if the citizens had fewer weapons, because then they wouldn't have anybody to fight. So in that regard, then you're right. But I really think that the left and the right use that as a wedge issue. You know, it's something that they can use to get themselves elected. You know, so we'll always have that collective argument in the United States.
And so what else do you do besides, do you express yourself anyway besides the YouTube channel and, and filming cops?
I'm pretty much an activist videographer. I mean, when there's a large protest, I'm really involved with the Occupy movement here in Portland. And what I mean by that is the remnants of it. What happened when Occupy fragmented in Portland is it got broken up into a bunch of other smaller organizations. You know, some are immigrant rights versus, some of them are immigrant right organizations. Some of the groups are, more along the lines of eco activists. Some are civil liberties oriented, like my group, Film the Police Portland. But we still kind of loosely affiliate and support one another. So if there's another activist group in Portland that's doing something, I'll go and cover it or support them. But generally, this Film the Police Portland project is what I put all my energy into, is trying to bring some police accountability to my community.
Have you made yourself a target with the local cops there? Do they know who you are? Do they harass you?
Honestly, there's a few cops that despise me. And then there's a few that I get along with quite well. There's a few cops that I would not want to have behind me if I'm riding in the car and my friend happens to turn the wrong way down the street. I wouldn't want to be caught breaking any minor law in front of a few officers that I know that I've encountered in the past. I mean, I could name names, but that would just be petty.
Well, let's be petty.
Okay, well, there's a Todd Angstrom here in Portland, Oregon that really needs to be gotten rid of. You know, there's a Ron Freshire here that's an officer that needs to be gotten rid of. Those two are particular targets. Todd he's a naughty man. I've seen him do naughty things, and he should go. Like any sane police bureau or department would fire this guy.
Now, what about does Portland have a civilian complaint review board?
We have a toothless dog of a aesthetic complaint board. We have independent police review board, which are basically a group of individuals that take complaints from the citizens and then run them up to City Hall. But they're privately appointed by City Hall, so they're very friendly and sympathetic towards the people that they're supposed to be taking care of. So it's like having an arthritic, toothless guard dog guard a De Beers Diamond Dispensary. It's just ridiculous. They only actually report on maybe 7% of the total volume of complaints, and it's a pittance of a program that's just not worth even mentioning, really. But hey, it gives me something to complain about.
Yeah. Well, but it seems like in most cities that the Civilian Complaint Review Board has been, you're right, been gutted. Maybe, do you know of any nationwide online website complaint bureau that people can make an anonymous complaint or like a safe complaint about police or something like that? Or
I don't know of anything like that, but the best thing to do is to contact internal affairs. Just if you're living in a city, you write internal affairs into YouTube, and I would document video evidence. I mean, video is the 21st century's lawyer in the court of public opinion. I mean, in Ferguson alone, Michael Brown will Darren Wilson, the cop that shot Michael Brown, will probably never see the inside of a jail cell or never have any hardcore discipline. But during those riots and protests at Ferguson, two cops were taken off the street by media.
Right.
One policeman said in front of a mainstream media camera, "Come on, you effing animals," and that guy is no longer afforded with the ability to feed his family because he's been thrown off of his police force. And then there's a cop that pointed the rifle at me and 12 or 13 other people. Officer, go F yourself. That fella was fired because of alternative media. So the mainstream media got one, and the alternative media got two cops that deserved to be off the street. So the court of public opinion is always in session, and I can't stress enough how powerful a 15-second video clip is. What my ultimate desire and goal is as a cop watcher is to turn it into a social norm. I'm constantly interacting with people on the street when I'm filming the police, and they're telling me, is that even legal? Not only is it legal, but the Supreme Court has ruled that it's your First Amendment right, not something that it's okay for you to do, but it's your right to film the police when they're on duty. So if we can turn that into a social norm to where the citizens interface with social media through pointing our cameras at police, they will start behaving because they don't want to be that next guy on the news. You know, it's that simple. But we have to get over our fear. We have to pull our phones out of our pockets. We have to get organized. All you need is really a friend to start a cop watching group. Don't do it alone. It's very dangerous. Like only a few people. I'm guilty. I'll do it by myself. And there's a few other people on YouTube that do it by themselves. You know, there's Tom Zebra. Check his channel out. There's Rogue Reflections. You can check his channel out. There's Mike Bluehair, my stuff. There's Antonio Beeler, the founder of Peaceful Streets Projects. This guy will go out and film the cops by himself, but it's dangerous to do. But you need to get yourself a buddy and do it in a systematic way. When you come up on a police stop, when someone's pulled over or someone's being talked to by the cops, pull up with your camera, start filming. Read off the license plate number of the police car. Describe the scene. Mark the date and time that the scene, the incident occurred. That way that information can be matched to the police call and the radio call information, and you've created a tiny little bit of accountability. Then it's no longer just the officer's word against the person that's being stopped. It's the officer's word versus an objective record, because the camera doesn't lie. I can't reinterpret something that I film on the street and say, well, the cop was doing that. You know, people will make comments underneath the video saying that's not even what the cop said, or that's not even what the cop did. So video is objective, and people don't follow laws because they're, good people. They follow laws because they're afraid of the consequences, and laws, it's all about consent, and that has to do with media and what we consume in our social networks, our YouTube and our Vimeo channels and our Live Leak and whatever video channel you watch online. It's all about consent and our interaction with our police. We are training our police into how they're going to behave as a customer service relation kind of way by how we interact with them. So if we bother to interact with our cops and monitor them, I think police can be trained into behaving better by the citizens, and that's the ultimate goal of what I do.
And you feel optimistic?
I feel as optimistic as I can be. I feel that I'm only responsible for my environment. I can only change what I have the power to change, and the rest of that I just kind of offer up to the universe. Either that or I'll just go crazy, because
that's what happened to me, man. I went crazy.
Yeah, man. We live in very interesting times, my friend, and things are tumultuous, and there's a lot of negativity. But I think I'm hopeful for what I have the power to change. And I think if everyone acted that way, you would have overlapping citizens that are trying to police their own communities. Because I really view what I'm doing as community service.
Yeah, I got you, man. I appreciate, and I really do, man. And I respect what you're doing, man. I'm really impressed. I'm gonna try and bring in Mike Gray one more time, see if he can answer your question. Hope I don't crash the whole system. I'm serious, man, because I can't even drag him in because he's in the chat here. Let's see if I can bring him in. I don't think I can. All right, man. So listen, is there anything you want to leave the audience with? Because I gotta bail out of here. There's not much more.
Well, yeah. Well,
I've been working since 4:30.
Oh man, you need to get some sleep. Yeah, I'll leave the audience with this. The best way to support what I'm doing, if you're inspired by our conversation, me and Ed here, go and share my work. And I invite people to research the case law in the state that they live in, find out the best way to observe the police. You can also Google copblock.org. Copblock.org. They have hundreds of chapters of cop watchers around the country, and they're all doing what I'm doing. They just all have different names. There's literally hundreds of groups that do what I do around the country.
Yeah,
so,
I noticed that. Yeah, it does seem to be like a new method of resistance, which I definitely support.
Is.
Yeah,
absolutely. So please do check out my YouTube channel, Mike Blue Hair. And if you're inspired by what I do, contact me on my website, filmthepolicepdx.com. There's a contact page. If you want advice on how to start a cop watching chapter, I'll help you with, the editing software. I mean, I'll even make somebody a little piece of splash animation that they can use in the beginning of their videos if they want to start a cop watching organization. Just contact me and we'll get this done. And that's what I'll leave the audience with.
Okay, Mike Blue Hair from Film the Police Portland is called?
Yeah, man.
Okay, got it, finally. Okay, listen, man, you're a welcome guest. You can come back anytime you want. Call in for the after shows, and chime in with your input, man. Okay.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and please do check out my work, Ed. I think you'd like my videos.
No, I promise I will. It's been a hectic couple of weeks. I got my stuff going
on. I know, man. I know. I've been a blur since Ferguson. I mean, I don't get enough sleep.
I can imagine.
Well, good night, brother.
Good night. Okay, so that's another episode of the Opperman Report. We'll see you guys next week. And we'll be back next week. We don't have a guest booked yet, but we have Bobby Seale coming up, and Ward Churchill coming up, and May Pang, and a whole bunch of great guests coming up, man. We just got to get them booked. So good night, everybody. CJ, you can take us off the air and